Hi, I'm Dan Reznik, and I'm here to talk about my ICGG 2022 paper titled The Wrought-Iron Beauty of Poncelet Loci. One first primitive we need is the idea of a triangle family or Poncelet family of triangles. So Poncelet's porism, which is a bigger result, more general result, basically refers to one-dimensional families of polygons. In our case, polygons are going to be triangles. Okay, so here's a triangle, which are simultaneously inscribed to a first conic. In this case, this first conic is this outer black ellipse, while simultaneously circumscribing a secondary conic known as the caustic. So in this case, the caustic or the secondary conic is this black ellipse. It is so the triangle is circumscribing the inner conic in the sense that all of its sides are tangent to said conic. Now in this case, we're looking at a very special arrangement of two conics. Their foci coincide. So these black dots here represent the foci, the common foci of both the outer and the inner one. So this is known as the confocal family. One of the first investigations I did was to actually look. So what's Poncelet's porism before we talk about the observation? This has to do with the fact that as soon as you can draw such a picture, okay, you're guaranteed to have a one-dimensional family of triangles that are equally inscribed into the outer conic and circumscribe the inner one. So it suffices for you to actually choose any point in the outer conic, and you're actually going to be able to find a triangle that has the same properties. We'll see this in the video in a second. But one of my first investigations was to figure out what was the locus of the incenter of this family of triangles over the porism. So it turns out that the locus of the incenter, we call the incenter, is the center of the inscribed circle to a triangle. So here's the incenter. I'm using Clark Kimberling's notation. So the incenter, where he calls the incenter X1. Take a look at the Encyclopedia of Triangle Centers to see, tens of thousands of triangle centers described. But the very first one on the list is the incenter. As it turns out, in the confocal family, okay, the locus of the incenter is a beautiful ellipse. This is highly unexpected, given all the nonlinearities required, specifically certain square roots that you need to compute when locating the incenter of a triangle. So this was a very interesting result. Let's look at the single motion. So here you can see I'm using a special app that I created to study loci of triangle centers over Poncelet. So you can see here now the continuous Poncelet family. And you can see here how the incenter of these triangles, even though they're changing geometry considerably, it's a family of scalene triangles, basically, right? But notice how they all stay simultaneously inscribed in the outer ellipse and circumscribe the inner ellipse. So this gives me the locus of the incenter. I could also investigate the locus of other triangle centers. So for example, if I change here, now this is showing me, let's get rid of the encircle. This is showing me the locus of the centroid of this triangle, which Kimberling represents as X2, right? So if I actually change the aspect ratio of the confocal pair, I get a different kind of ellipse. But the locus of the centroid is also an ellipse, as is the locus of circumcenter. Okay, so recall that the circumcenter of a triangle is the center of the circumscribed circle to the triangle. So you get this ellipse, and if you play with the aspect ratio, you're going to get a different type of locus for the circumcenter. Okay, so let's go back to our paper. If I can find it. Okay, so you'll be here. Okay, so so much for loci of triangle centers over Poncelet. What do I want to talk about now? I want to talk about further investigations that I did with the tool. And I started to notice that some triangle centers started to sweep out more interesting loci. For example, the locus of this point called X6, the Cymedian point, looks elliptic, but it's not an elliptic, it's a quartic. The locus of a point known as a Feuerbach point sweeps the caustic. Okay? And the locus of some more exotic point in Kimberling's list, known as X59, sweeps this self-intersecting curve. Okay, so that we actually take a look at this simulation, let's go ahead and do that, and you can see that in real time. So you can see that X11, the Feuerbach point, in the confocal pair, so this is the confocal family, is sweeping the caustic. All right. Okay, so what's germane to our conversation here is actually not the details of which point has which particular locus, which we have studied extensively in publications that we did previously. But the first reaction I had here was to actually look at the self-intersecting curve and say, oh, this is a beautiful thing. You know, what am I going to get for, you know, some other centers in Kimberling's list? So I kept playing around with that. Another investigation you can do is, instead of actually looking at triangle centers, you can look at vertices, the curves swept by vertices of your Poncelet family, or triangles derived from the Poncelet family. For example, here I'm plotting, you know, this green curve is the locus of the vertices of a triangle known as the in-touch triangle. So there's different triangles, and you end up in the end of the day, you get to a palette of curves that are self-intersected and have nice, let's call them aesthetic features. All right. So now fast forward to me walking my dog in my neighborhood here in the neighborhood of Flamengo in the city of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and just sort of stumbling upon these wrought-iron gates that I think they were constructed in the early part of the 20th century, and they really dot many of the buildings in this older neighborhood here of Rio. And I started to notice some symmetries and some features that resembled curves that I had been seeing in my Poncelet experiments. So I started, as I was walking my dog, started to imagine if these two worlds had the same aesthetic components, right? So I'm here showing a few more of these gates, right? And I started pick and choose different experiments that I had done with my tool and see that and notice that there were some similarities, right? There were some fourfold symmetry, some sort of recursion and mirroring and types of curves that I got that might have been in the mind of the designers when they designed these gates. All right. So what I ended up doing was I said, let me add more features to that tool, not only to analyze, if certain centers were conics or not conics, but to actually make the loci look beautiful, right? So the first thing I did was, instead of just drawing a particular beautiful locus, I said, let me make my background be black and just draw them with a particular color. And then I said, okay, let me implement an automated algorithm that might pick random colors out of a palette and fill in disjoint regions so that I could achieve some effect, some artistic effect. And what I did was I ended up producing, I believe, some 500 pictures, and I placed them on this gallery, which I actually uploaded as a video to YouTube. So if I click here, for example, I click here, I'm going to be going into a YouTube video where you can actually visit that, and you're going to get, multiple experiments, multiple curves. Some of them are rather surprising, asymmetric, just different things that you can get. I do believe there's some 200, I don't remember, several hundred such designs that are all in this video, and I'm going to leave a link somewhere so you guys can actually get to it. Okay. So yeah, so I started to observe this connection, right? I started to observe this connection and the power that this tool is giving me to design new things. For example, here's a couple of samples. They are in my gallery. I'm calling these guys Dragonflies. Okay, so somebody might want to color them or use them I might want to use them in a design. If you actually are allowed to color the interior of these regions using this automated coloring algorithm, here's a couple of designs that I'm calling Leafy designs. You literally have an infinite palette of things with which to experiment and obtain a lot of these designs. So my reaction was, okay, these are rather beautiful. Might somebody be interested in these to either design new wrought iron designs or whatever, okay, or just play around with and see what Poncelet is capable of producing. Okay, so I actually happen to have a sister who is a graphic designer, and she saw some of these things and she became really interested in it, and she said, Dan, can you send me some vector graphics of these loci, some of these curious loci that you're producing? So I actually compiled, I think there's some, there's 12 of them here, and I sent her these things as vector graphic files, and she was able to import those into a tool like Photoshop. She's, super specialized in using Photoshop for various things. And I said, hey, her name is Regina. Regina, can you actually try to color these and tell me what you can do with them? So she went ahead and did some, she did dozens of designs. I'm just showing you guys here a few of them. I thought they were rather beautiful. These are like Poncelet chromes. This guy here kind of looks like a butterfly or moth. In the gallery, I give each one of these designs a name. I don't remember what they were. But she just was playing around with different functions and features of Photoshop, and she said, oh, this is really an interesting space and an interesting set of curves. It has a different aesthetic, so send me more. And she just kept producing more. Okay, so in the end of the day, I think we're getting to the end of the talk. Just to make a few considerations, right? Put together a tool. It's actually my main goal with this tool is to investigate geometric aspects of Poncelet triangles over different Poncelet families and different triangle centers. So, we uncovered dozens, if not hundreds, of surprising results here. Not only by way of loci, but also by way of quantities that some of these families conserve. Okay, and I had a lot of fun co-developing this tool, which is available online. Anybody can go and take a look at the app, okay, just by following this link. Co-developing it with Everton Darlan. We put together a bunch of tutorials for this tool, and I wrote a pretty detailed manual, I think some 50 pages or some more, of all the functionality that is buried in the left-hand side of this, loci oscilloscope. We call it, this is like, the locus scope or locus playground. So I highly encourage folks that are taking a look at this presentation to try these links, to go, for example, if you just click here on this link, you're going to be directed to a particular experiment. In this particular experiment, we're watching four loci, 4 triangle centers simultaneously. So another really cool thing you can do is you can actually distort, right? You can change the aspect ratio of one of the ellipses. So you have a one-dimensional family of confocal pairs that subtend a valid Poncelet family, and you can look at what's happening to each one of these loci as you play around in real time with the aspect ratio of these families. Okay, so there's an enormous slew of functionality that is available. Feel free to take a look at it. You can always reset the experiment to go back to sort of the original thing, and then you can play with the controls over here. And by the way, I put together a tutorial. Okay, I think it's a 4-video tutorial that allows one to learn the functionality on the left-hand side of this app. So here's a link to the manual, and here's a link to the YouTube tutorials. I think it's a series of 4 videos, a playlist. All right, so looks like we're getting close to 15 minutes. I'm gonna thank everybody. Just to conclude, to say that we are surrounded by things that might have been done 100 years ago, but if you just keep an open eye to what's around you, you may actually get a lot of inspiration for your work in geometry and engineering and whatnot. Okay, so my email is actually wrong. My email is simply dresnik@gmail.com. These last letters here are incorrect. Feel free to email me, and I'll be glad to answer any of your questions and hear your comments and suggestions. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.